Javon Edmonds, football writer for Syracuse.com. Javon, we had a chance to chat with you recently for the first time. Glad to see you here in studio. We'll start with the big news, which was obviously the quarterback decision. Fran Brown making that decision after the second scrimmage, as he promised. He's going with Steve Angeli. Did it play out the way you thought it would play out?
I'm not shocked. I don't know if I had a prediction on how it would play out. I had an opinion on how I would go about it, which was Ricky Collins is the more gifted physical specimen, and it's not like he's a pure runner. Like, he can actually pass the ball. So considering him being the future of the program and him having that 4 or 5 month head start on Angeli, I thought Ricky Collins would come out of this thing as the starter. But I'm not shocked that Angeli got the job. I mean, he's got 73 more passing attempts than Collins. So there's just things that are going to come with that you can only get from experience, command of a huddle, the way you learn a playbook. And that's what ultimately got Angeli the job. So I wasn't shocked. I thought it could have went either way. I mean, Fran said it came down to the wire. He claims he lost sleep over it Saturday and Sunday night. So I wasn't surprised. I don't think I had a prediction as to who was going to get it. I really just saw why each one could get it and had, I guess, my own choice of what I would roll with. But, you know, when you've got hostile territory, Tennessee coming in, and Angeli just showed you how composed he can be against the Penn State defense, it makes sense to roll with him.
Yeah. So you bring up Ricky Collins, and I realize there's a lot of speculation with this, but what comes of Ricky Collins now? This day and age, a lot of people will just assume, well, you know, he's probably just going to transfer after the season anyway, but he's got more eligibility left than Steve Angeli does. You know, how do you see it playing out with Ricky? Do you think he sticks it out here, or do you think he's, he'll look elsewhere?
They want him to stick it out. Miles White couldn't stop talking about how excited he was for Ricky's future. And there's cause to be excited. And he's got 2 years after this one. The only thing is, it's not like Steve Angeli's a senior.
Right.
He's a junior. So, right. You know, Steve can come back next season. And if that's the case, I have a hard time believing Ricky's going to stick around because he left LSU, which is in his hometown, because he didn't want to sit behind, Nussmeier this year. And we all know no one in the country is going to take Garrett Nussmeier's job. That was my vote for preseason All-American. Cade Klubnik ultimately got it. It's going to come down to those two anyway. Some people think Lenore Sellers. I'll save that conversation for another day. But now he's in Syracuse. He wants to play. So, maybe he'll sit this year because at least he had a chance to compete for the starting job, unlike what he would have had down at LSU. But for another season as a junior, for a guy who is talented and was seen as the heir apparent to Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, I think if Steve Angeli is back in 2026, Ricky Collins isn't.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. All right, so we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, and for good reason, but it is far from the only question mark on this team, given everything that Syracuse lost after last season. What other depth chart questions do you have on your mind here as we prepare to see that depth chart revealed heading into game week?
So we're going to speak to O-line coach Dale Williams today. And for me, that's the last question on the depth chart is who are going to be the 5 starters and who are going to be the 2 or 3 depth guys that rotate in, to keep the fresh legs. So it's offensive line. And outside of that, special teams. Special teams stunk last season. And from everything I heard and saw yesterday, there's some cause for concern. Like, Jaden O is the better kickoff guy, but Trip Woody's the better field goal kicker. No, you need a kicker that's going to encompass both facets of the game. Ethan Stengel's been a great long snapper for punt team, but Fran Brown Jr. has been the field goals guy. No, you need a long snapper that's going to do both. So I think special teams is going to be the question mark. What happens at long snapper, and who's going to be your kicker? We saw both of them miss, 50-plus yarders wide left yesterday at practice. So they're still developing consistency there. So I think special teams, will it be improved? Absolutely. but it's still a question mark for this team.
How about the defense? That came up earlier today on our show. They lost a lot at linebacker. They lost a lot up front. I think most people believe the defensive backfield is going to be okay, but how confident are you that this defense is going to be better than it was last year?
It has to be better. Right? Or else, when you're a bad tackling team, maybe this is the Ravens fan in me and just the AFC North consumer, I look at your linebackers coach. Those are the anchors of your defense and the ones that you want, leading your team in tackles. So when you're one of the worst tackling teams in the country, I look at that spot. I think it's going to be upgraded with Derek McDonald and Gary Bryant III. But, if it's not, there are going to be conversations about Robert Wright this offseason, right? Elijah Robinson's one heck of a recruiter. But, somebody on social media is going to ask, does Fran have the guts to say something to his longtime best friend, the boom, boom, boom? I don't think his job security should be in question whatsoever. But it has to improve us. There's going to be some changes made. But I think that front seven is probably going to be the strength of the defense, their depth inside with George Rooks Jr., Chris Thomas Jr., Kevin Jobity, who's now playing inside, and a healthy Tank Wilson. I think that's a great combination on the edge. David Reese, David Omoperiola, and Dennis Hawkins are going to be rotating on the edge. I think they're going to be fine. I like McDonald. I like Bryant. I think Antoine Delorier, the freshman, who's built like John Cena. Their linebacker room is solidified to me this season. So I think when it comes down to the secondary, Deuce Chestnut and Devin Grant are going to be relied on heavily to help out Chris Peel and Demetrius Samuel. Davian Kerr is going to be the nickel guy. But it comes down to, can they cover? This is going to be Chris Peel's first time as a full-time starter. Demetrius Samuel, 17, and still learning college football. So, someone's going to test him. He's going to have good days. He's going to have bad days. Grant and Chestnut, they're not the best cover guys, but they clean up on the back end. But if they have to come down and cover, you might be in trouble. So I think the secondary is the spot where the positions are solidified. Are they going to hold up? That's the question. You brought up Demetrius Samuel.
He has said that he wants to play 50-50 defensive back and wide receiver. And then I know Fran said yesterday that it's going to be more like 60-40, that he is going to be the starting defensive back and that they'll work him in on offense. Are you buying that? Do you think we're going to see that much of Demetrius Samuel on offense?
So I've been saying all along, if they want to tell us the practice reps are 50-50, sure, then Fran cleared it up saying 60-40, which is closer to the number that, myself, Chris Carlson, and Brent Axe believe based off of what we see in practice. But all three of us have been saying they don't need him at receiver this year. That is the deepest position on the team. Between Darryl Gill, Jonte Cook, Justice Ross Simmons, Emmanuel Ross, Umari Hatcher, and before his injury, Boobie Johnson, they did not need Demetrius. Where they need him is at corner. So the plan eventually might be for him to really become that Travis Hunter full-time two-way player. But at least for right now, he's needed at corner, and that's where he's starting. That's going to be his primary position.
All right, let's look ahead to the opener. And, just like Syracuse announced their starting quarterback, Tennessee did the same thing. Joey Aguilar, the Appalachian State transfer, getting the nod. I think everybody kind of assumed that. What stands out to you about this Tennessee team? Great defense last year. They're obviously breaking in a new quarterback. Maybe some questions on offense. What stands out to you about the Vols?
I think defense is going to be Tennessee's calling card. I left them off my top 25 ballot for the preseason. I don't think that's a top 25 team. I think Syracuse's offense is in better shape than Tennessee's right now. They had a terrible transfer portal window. Chris Brazzell might be the only receiver over there that's trustworthy. You lose Dylan Sampson. You had the whole turmoil at quarterback, and now you got to see if Aguilar can make the jump from App State to Tennessee. Real question marks at Tennessee. I don't think that is some unwinnable game. The spread opened up at 14.5. Someone's going to make a boatload of money taking Syracuse to cover. I just don't think that is some insurmountable opponent. Syracuse could easily go into conference play with a 3-0 record. in my eyes. I think where things heat up is in conference play when you've got to see Clemson, you've got to see Miami. Notre Dame is down the line. Georgia Tech's offense is great. Pitt gave you a lot of fits last year, and Kyle Lewis is back. Eli Hosting, you're assuming, is going to be healthy this time around. So I think conference play is when, Syracuse starts stressing a little bit. I think from the opener to UConn to Colgate, I have no reason to doubt that they will come out of that less than 3-0 or 2-1.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't even mention SMU with Kevin Jennings. I mean,
Duke's defense with Manny Diaz now. Yeah,
the ACC schedule is brutal. So with that being said, you think they've got a good chance in the opener, a decent chance of being 3-0 going to that Clemson game. Is Syracuse football going to a bowl game in 2025?
Yeah, I just can't see. I can't see Fran Brown winning less than 6 games. I just can't. That's a real competitive guy who knows his football, and the schedule provides at least 3 wins in conference play. Knowing Fran, him and Manny Diaz go back, he's going to want to beat him. It's like not on any negative things, just, when you know somebody, you want your bragging rights over them, right? He was going to work for Manny back in the day at Temple until Manny, jetted off after 2 weeks, which they still haven't gotten over. So he's going to want to win that game. Pitt, they made that homecoming. And that was the worst loss of last season. That tells you Fran is hell-bent on making a statement in that game. And the players who are returning from last season have not forgotten that game. So they're going to want to win that one. They're going to want to win Boston College, And then Georgia Tech and Carolina, one of those has to be a win, right? So there are 6 wins in that schedule. I don't think Fran goes from, 9 wins last regular season to fewer than 6 this time around. I just don't see it.
All right, Javon, we got to run. It was great having you here in studio. Thanks for coming in. We can follow you on Syracuse.com all season long, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will be in Atlanta for the opener.
All right.
And every other game this season.
All right. Well, we look forward to chatting with you quite a bit over the course of the season. That's Javon Edmonds. We'll take a timeout. We'll wrap things up next on ESPN.